Hey guys, my name is Kyle, and I'm the president of the Martin Computer Science Club. And basically, what we're going to be going over today is a REST API. Now, what a REST API is, basically think of a website, but instead of recording, seeing all this beautiful stuff, it's just returning you information. All right, so that's basically what a REST API is. And before I get started, I'm gonna tell y'all. So there basically there's a bunch of different methods that a REST API can have. You can have a get method, you can have a post method, you can have delete, you can have update. I'm just going to go over get and post today. But basically, what a get method does is basically you're telling the server, hey, can I have this information? And the server's like, sure. And you're giving it whatever parameters, and it's just going to give you information. All right? Now, what a post method does is you're telling the server, hey, I want to change something on the server side. So the server's like, okay. And then whatever the method is, such as you want to change a server value or even upload a picture, something like that, it does that. All right? So we are going to use the website Replit. And basically, we're using this because it's a in-browser IDE, so you don't need to download anything other than something I'm about to talk about. And because also you can host web servers on here and stuff like that. So first we're going to log in or sign up if you don't have an account. I do have an account, so I'm going to sign in. All right. Okay, and then you're gonna hit this new Replit button. Gonna click Python, and the name doesn't matter, so you can name it if you want, but I usually don't. They have pretty good names. Dimpled Hasty Concentration, I think that is. But we're going to press Create Replit. Replit created, and it's going to load our Replit. Now, it's setting up the main file here. Now, what I like about Replit is you don't have to use pip to install stuff. Usually, when you're coding, say locally on your computer inside a Python editor, you're going to need to install um, packages such as the one we're going to be using today, Flask. But with Replit, it automatically searches for packages that aren't in the project and then adds them. Okay, so what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to be using a package called Flask. And basically, what Flask is, it's what's used to host websites and web servers in Python. So we're gonna say from Flask, import Flask, and basically those are this is the main components of a website. The routes, the um, the debugger, the HTML loader. It's all in here. All right. And then we're going to also be asking for requests. And basically, requests is what we're going to be using a lot of. Not request, request. Requests. And it's going to hold our arguments that we're going to be using whenever we're handling information and stuff like that. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable called app. Now it can be called anything. It's just going to be the variable that's in charge of our Flask application. Okay, so we're going to do Flask. All right, and then we're going to put the variable name in here. Basically, what this variable is, it's either two things. It's going to be called main, or it's main with underscores on each side, like it is right here, or it's going to be called the file name, in which this case would be main.py. Now, since this is the only file running, it's going to be called main with underscores on each side. So, all right. After that, what we're going to do is we are going to set up a decorator. Now, what a decorator is, basically, it takes a method that you have made. We're about to make it in a second, and then it just adds certain functions to it. For example, I'm going to start making this decorator so you can see what I mean. All right. So we want this decorator to um, have a certain URL. All right, and we want to tell the method that is attached to the decorator, hey, this is the URL you're going to react to. So we're going to react to API / we're going to go ahead and make an addition method. So we're just going to call it add. All right, and basically, since we give it that information, it's going to handle it and say, oh, okay, so you only want us to run this method whenever this URL is called. Great, that's good to know. Also, we're going to give it what type of request we want, what type of API call we want. So we're going to type in methods, and this is going to be an array of variables, and we're going to type in get, because we only want a get method for this first one. Alright, so yeah, now we're going to create our method. Now, I suggest getting more into decorators, by the way, learning more about them. They're pretty cool. For example, if you need to time how long a function is, you could use a decorator for that. But yeah, so if you're more interested in that, I suggest looking it up. But yeah, that's as much as I'm going to go into it. So we're going to make a method called add. Alright? Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this. We imported this, and the reason why we imported it is so we can grab information from whenever API calls is called. So we're going to do request.args. That's going to grab the arguments, and then we're going to get a specific one, and we're going to call the specific one number 1. All right. Okay, and then we're going to want to save this to a variable. I'm just going to call it n1. Okay, and it's green because we haven't used it before. We're going to copy it. We're going to paste this again. We're going to create a second one because you add 2 numbers. I'm just going to do Control V. Sorry, working with one hand here. Oh God, okay, I did not copy it. There we go. Alright, and we're just going to change this to 2. And 2. Alright. So, after that, we're going to want to return n1 plus n2. Okay. Now, we don't want to leave it like this because currently, after I add the main function, I'm going to go ahead and do that first. But basically, we can't leave it how it is right now because if we do n1 plus n2, those are both strings. Whenever request.args.get, those are returning strings, so we don't have to do with integers, boolean. It's so everything's universal. So we're going to need to, whenever we go back to here, I'm just going to do it real quick since I'm talking about it. We're going to need to cast this as strings. I mean, not strings, as integers. So we're going to type int. Alright, and then we're going to need to convert it back to a string because the method wants to return a string. So we're going to do str, cast it back as a string, and then that will work properly. Okay, so now this is the main piece of code that makes our code run. So if name, that's the variable that we used up top, and we're going to say if that is equal to main, let me do this, if that is equal to main, so if it's the main Python file being ran, what we're going to do is we're going to do app.run, which runs our actual website, our web server. Okay, so, oh shoot, my bad. Okay, so we have, as you can see, there's multiple options. The only options we're going to be focusing on host and debug. So we're going to set debug to true. So whenever we're typing or whenever we make an API call, everything appears over here. So true, and then we're going to type host to be, it's going to be a string, and it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, and that's localhost. Alright, so if we run this, everything should work. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to set up everything. So it's installing Flask first, and now the server's running. Now, this website right here, we're technically hosting a website right now, but we don't have anything set up on this URL. We have something set up on the /API/add URL. But in a second, we'll set up something on here just so we can see the difference between a REST API and a regular website. But yeah, that's the difference. I mean, that's why that's not showing. Now, the application that I use to test REST APIs out is called Postman. Postman is a pretty nifty API. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to set it to GET, and then we're going to go back over here and copy the URL. Alright? And we're going to remember to do /API/add, since that's the API. /API/add, since that's the URL that we were looking for over here. Okay. Alright. And then we're going to do number 1, since that's the first one that we're looking for. Order doesn't necessarily matter as long as it's here. Number 1, and then we're just going to do 1. Alright, number 2. We're just going to do 2. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send this. Alright, and then we get 3. 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Now, if you go back over here, you can see that we just called a get method with this information. Alright, so we know our get method for API/add function works properly. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set up a website so this isn't just blank. You might want to set up a website for your hackathon project. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this is the first thing, because this has messed me up before. And we're going to make the route be this, and that's how you set up this main website right here. Okay. And as you can see, it says Replit process died unexpectedly. That's because as we're typing, it's going to be updating. That's something Flask does whenever it's in debug mode. And if we make a syntax mistake, which technically this is a syntax mistake because this is a decorator without a method reference, it's going to die, and that's alright. So don't worry about anything that's happening over here while you're typing. So that's how we're going to leave it. And we don't need to have specific methods, because it doesn't really matter. We're not trying to do a form or something like that. If we were doing a form, you would specify both get and post, so you can submit and get the form, but we don't need to worry about that. So we're just going to define, and we're just going to call this method index. Alright, and we're just going to return a string. We're just going to return hello world. Alright, so whenever we run that, now this website over here will load properly. Or not. Okay, let me see. Huh, that's weird. Start. There we go. Okay. Sometimes it just doesn't want to work. Anyway, but as you can see, that's the main website. Now, it looks like the same thing. We're basically like, if we were to type in the URL, which I'm not going to do, is we'll just get the number 3. So what's the difference between this and this? Well, if I type in this tag right here, which is an HTML tag, and I'm going to go ahead and end it. We get a header, and if I delete this, it'll look better. But we'll get a header, and that's because we're sending HTML out. The Flask object is reading the string as HTML. So the difference is we're not delivering a website whenever we set up a REST API. Now we can have a website set up as clearly shown here, But with the REST API, we're just focused on delivering information like username, login, stuff. It just depends on what you're doing. All right, but the information is going to be useful for whenever you're doing an Android app, desktop app, whatever you're setting up, and it needs data from a server. All right, so now, um, now that I mentioned that this is basically the same as this, well, this needs to be different, so we can't add tags, and it looks just be a header 3, just like it is over here. So what we're going to do is we are going to make this into a map. All right, and basically by making it into a map, we put it in JSON, and by putting in JSON, we have put it in a form, in a language that basically your application can read better. Basically what JSON is, it's just as I described. It's just human readable language and also computer readable language. It just makes it easier to for both computers and humans to read it, and it stores variables, objects, and stuff like that. You can look more on it, but basically we're going to call this sum. All right, sum, and then we can add 2 other fields here. And because we're doing a map now, we don't even need this. We can just do n1 plus n2, and it will just interpret it as an integer now, since it's part of a JSON table. All right, and then we're gonna say num1 just to add more stuff to this JSON dictionary. Num1, we're gonna put n1. Num2, I'm gonna put m2. All right. Sorry about that. As I was saying, so we're going to have it be like this. Okay, num1, num2, num2, num2. Alright. What is wrong here? Oh, okay. I'm being dumb. This is going to be the name that we're going to return back. Alright. Alright. Okay, so when we run this now, whenever we go back to Postman, we're going to run this again, and then we're going to get some actual useful format. Okay, so we could pull using our computer num1, num2, sum, whatever we wanted to pull. And I lied about this needing to go back to, about the integer cast needing to be taken away, because as you can see, that 1 plus 2 is not equal to 12. So what we need to do is we need to put that back to integer. And that's because of the problem I explained before. N1 and N2 are strings. So there we go. Run. Just make sure there's no errors. Send. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now let me show you how to set up a post website. Alright? Or a post call, if you will. Alright, so we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do set up an app, that route. Shoot. And I'm gonna call this is Kyle. So we're gonna do API, and we're just gonna count how many times the user submits a name that matches the name Kyle. Okay, so we're gonna do is Kyle, and before we get any further on that, let's go ahead and make a variable to store that information, the counter. We're gonna call it Kyle counter, or Kyle count. We're gonna set that equal to 0. Alright, now we're gonna make that method define is Kyle. Oh, hold up. Before I go on, we need to call our method. We need to establish that the only methods we're going to be using for this one is post, and I'll show you in a minute why that's important. It's mostly a security feature, so you're not using bad methods for so you're just not breaking security. It's more of a security feature, but I'll show you where it's also important in a second. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. Alright, so now we need code. So we're going to save a variable called name. We're gonna grab requests. That's not how you spell request. Request dot args dot get, and we're going to get a variable called name. Alright, so that's the only variable we're going to be using, or parameter rather, in Postman whenever we're submitting it. Okay, and now we're going to have an if statement. But before I start that if statement, we need to say global Kyle. The reason why we need Kyle count rather. The reason why we need to do this is because isKyle is just a method. Kyle count, it's established outside the method. It has no idea it exists. So what we need to do is to make sure that it knows that it exists is say, hey, use this Kyle count outside of here. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to say global Kyle count name. We set up the name, so now we can do our if statement without any errors. If we're going to say name, and we're going to say dot lower, just to match it with any form of capitalization you give it. That's a method, so let's make it a method. If name dot lower is equal to Kyle, alright, we're going to return. We're going to first increase Kyle count. Alright, plus equal 1, and that just adds 1 to it. And then we're going to return a map, and we're going to say is Kyle, and we'll just return a Boolean value, true. Right, and then we're going to go ahead and give them the Kyle count. Kyle count. That's going to be equal to Kyle count. There you go. So is Kyle true? Kyle count, Kyle count. Alright, but what if they don't get Kyle? So what we're going to do in that case, we don't need to do an else statement, because if they never hit this return block, then there's no need to. We're just going to copy this, go down one more, and paste that back in, and we're just going to change this to false. Right. Then let me just make sure everything works. We're going to run it. Alright, no errors. We got our hello world page. And if we go over here, we're going to change this to is Kyle. Alright. And notice I haven't changed this to post yet. So if we type in name and just do any combination of Kyle, type in name, give a value, even though this is technically right, we're going to get a 405 method not allowed error. That's because of the security feature that was over here. We're only allowed to do post requests, and as you can see, we're trying to do a get request. So what we need to do is we need to change this to a post request. And these are all the other requests that you can do. You can look into those later, but we're going to change it to a post request. Now if we send it, we're going to get something we can use. We're going to get is Kyle true, because this is Kyle, and then Kyle count equal to 1. And then we can do this a certain number of times, and Kyle count will just keep on going up until we restart the program. Alright? So, and just to test this is works, we're going to send this. This is going to be false. False forward. Okay. So those are the basics on how to set up a REST API. Those get and post, those are the main two that you're going to be using to change values and send values. There's other things that you can do. For example, for a post method, instead of returning or instead of changing a number, what you could do is say submit a picture if you needed to do that for some reason, and you use some type of base64 method. I recommend looking up specific stuff like submitting files via post request and stuff like that. But yeah, those are the basics on how to set up a get and post request. All right, and then you have a little free server to run everything on. So yeah, hope this has helped you, and yeah. All right, good luck at the hackathon.